Hey everyone, welcome to the Failroad Express's how-to video. Today we're going to teach you how to make custom storage for your miniatures. And today we've got X-Wing miniatures as our example.
Well, if you love these mini games, they have lots of cool minis, but to keep them careful and not broken, you need to store them. And you can either use the original boxes, which, if you love the game a lot, can end up being a lot of space you need.
Yeah.
Or you have to buy custom designed and expensive carrying cases and things to hold them individually, which is also a lot of money and is often very bulky.
Now, your third option is to make customized miniature storage. Say, repurpose a toolbox or some kind of container that you've already got at your house. And you can do this for really cheap, less than 20 bucks if you've got the right stuff. All it's going to take is a craft knife, some kind of craft glue like E6000, and some foam board, either a black foam board or white foam board. And that's it. You just got to get your measurements right, and then you can fill your toolbox or whatever with all of your miniature storage. So Robert, I'm going to show you guys how to make it, and then we'll give our thoughts at the end.
I know I need some.
Absolutely. Here are the tools I used to create my custom miniature storage. First, I've got E6000 hobby glue. Of course, you can use the glue of your choice. I've got a craft knife. I've got a measuring tape, a pin so I can mark my measurements, a straight edge to keep my lines straight, and of course my foam board and a piece of cardboard underneath so I don't cut my table. When building custom storage for a toolbox like this, make sure you build it one shelf at a time. That way, you can stick your first shelf in and get your measurements for your second shelf. Once you've built the outer walls and the floor of each shelf, make sure you place it in your toolbox to see if it fits and cut away any tight areas. I've also placed a hole in the middle of my shelf, so if it gets wedged inside the toolbox, I can just use my tape measure to pull it out.
I'm just now marking down the measurements for the shelf. This is going to be the floor of that shelf. Remember, always measure twice and cut once, so I'm measuring again. Also, don't forget to account for the width of the material that you're working with. So this foam board is it's a little over 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to count it as 1/8 of an inch. So whenever you're making the height of your shelf, you want to make sure that you consider how thick this is so that you don't accidentally make your shelf too high and your toolbox won't be able to close. So now we're going to cut it out, and I've really got no tips as far as cutting things out. It's just going to take practice and constant recorrecting to make sure that you're staying on the line. Snapped it a little bit, and there you have it. There is our next shelf piece, and we'll see how it fits. Really important to make sure that your shelf is in there and you've got a good idea of the clearance of the lid of your toolbox for when you close it. So I know that my clearance is just slightly above flush with this top portion right here. So I'm going to get a good inch. It's going to be, I'm going to say 1.25 inches. And 1.25 inches is really all I need. So let's go ahead and put my base in there. And this isn't going to fit perfectly the first time, definitely not. What I'm going to do is I'm going to press down. And in pressing down, I'm definitely going to see the spots where I need to shave a little bit off. So now I'm going to put my ruler back, my tape measure back in here and pull up. And now you can see that there are little nicks where I need to shave something off. After having set the base of my next shelf in my toolbox and looking for all the rough areas, I have cut it out. Notice I've also had to cut out pieces on the edges for the area where the toolbox side grip goes. But now that I've placed my shelf in there, I don't need to use my tape measure stuck in the middle there to get it out, because it comes out without any resistance. Now you're also going to want to keep in mind that when you're making your outer walls, if you've got little notches like this in your toolbox, you're going to have to account for those notches when you put your walls in, or if you have the ability to, maybe you can just cut these out. I'm not going to worry about cutting them out, and I'll just work around them. We've got all of our walls cut out for our very top shelf, and just keep in mind we're going to keep track of these notches here and make sure that we kind of put our walls just a tiny bit in front of the notches. And then these notches up here, we'll just make sure that they go just a tiny bit in front of them as well. Just to let you know how I cut this front portion out, I simply measured a piece just as long as this back piece right here, and then I cut it into 3 separate pieces. So now we will go ahead and glue the base. Once again, for this E6000, just make sure that you've got plenty of ventilation and airflow, because it's a pretty powerful glue. This is the sloppiest job I've done so far. Would appear I've severely miscalculated somewhere. Now I actually like this little container that came in the core set, because it holds my rods for my small ship very nicely, so I'm going to measure it. It measures out to be a little over 1.5 inches. I'm going to say 1 5/8 inches. And so that's why we're going to measure our wall here to make sure it's tall enough. And then we're going to look at setting it right about there. Measure the interior. We're going to end up with about 13 3/8 inches. Use our straight edge to draw a straight line so that we can see it. You may not be able to see it on the video because it's black ink on black foam board, but I can see it. And now we'll take my knife and cut it. And it'll fit in nicely right there. Sweet. So I've put the piece in that I want to create a wall around. The wall's not been glued in yet, so I'm going to take that out. Didn't get stuck in the glue, that's good. I'm actually going to mark it with my pen. I'm going to hold it down and just mark it. Take the glue. And lay the bead down right next. This E6000 says it takes 24 hours to completely set, but I've found that once you get it stuck on in the right place, it bonds pretty quickly. Take our glue, put some glue on the ends. Both ends. Then hold it just for a couple seconds and it will adhere pretty quickly. Now this is a very important part of the process, and one that you definitely don't want to overlook. You want to make sure that before you start putting your walls in and gluing them down, that you can get your fingers in there to actually get the pieces out. It's just as important to be able to get the pieces out as to put them back in. So I know I've got enough space in there to be able to get my pieces out, and then I've also got to decide where do I want to put my stands and other components that might go with certain ships. So I've got these areas over here that aren't going to be wide enough, and yeah, I might be able to put stuff in there like so, and I can wall those in a little bit better, but just make sure once again that I can get them out. And there's our top shelf with our finished outer walls, and then we just want to mark where our inner walls are going to go. We want to just make sure we lay everything out before we actually glue anything down, and then just draw lines so that we know where everything is going to go. Alright, so here is the final product. Here's all three of my shelves that I made for my toolbox, which is right here. There's the toolbox, there's the lid, and one thing I definitely want to stress is that you want to make sure that you can reach in to each of your little cubbies that you create, and you're able to pull out each of your figures, make sure that they're not going to get stuck in there. This is something that I double checked before I glued all of my little walls down. So up here, even though it's a tight squeeze, I know I can get my figures out. I can stick my finger in here to be able to pull these out, and I've got a little area right here where I can stick my finger to get all of my cards out. Then another neat thing I've done is I've got my 100-point squad lists packaged in some of the little baggies that came in some of the expansions. So there you have it. That is creating a custom storage for your miniatures. So there's my first one for my large ships and all of my large dials and tokens and maneuver dials. Second shelf going in, that's where I've got several of my ships. I've got all of my Imperial dials. And then finally, I've got my top row, which contains my cards and more of my Rebel ships and dials. I'm gonna put this on top, and it's time to close it for the first time. Now, I've got a custom carrying case for all of my X-Wing miniatures. So that is how to make some custom miniature storage.
Really easy. Good way to make sure your ships don't get damaged or broken.
Yep.
And make sure you don't drop boxes as you try to walk through doors.
I've done that before going to the X-Wing competitions. Yeah, so make sure you check out our other videos that are right here in these links below.
Like and subscribe.
Absolutely. And make sure you check out our other board game videos. Thanks for watching, Failroaders.
And may the savings be with you.